Do you regard black magic as being purely fictitious, or is there some truth in it?
Some truth. 100% truth. There is nothing fictitious about black magic, in any way whatever. It is a fact. It is a fact which has existed for several thousand years. I mean, when we talk about black magic, we are talking about Satanism, necromancy, alchemy, witchcraft, the worship of Satan, the worship of dark forces, whether it's voodoo, juju, whether it's something practiced in the Western world or the Eastern world, whether it's easily defined or not easily defined, the order of the left-hand path, the following of this, the following of that. It is basically the worship of the force of evil as embodied by Satan, Lucifer, the princes of darkness and their legions and so on. In a very simple sense, of course, it goes much more deeply than that. It is a fact. It is a desperately dangerous fact. It does exist. It exists around us today. Satanic ceremonies will be happening in Britain tonight, very definitely. Ask any priest, ask any member of the forces of law and order, and they will tell you that Satanism as such, it's there, and it has been for thousands of years. Man has worshipped the devil longer than he has worshipped perhaps an established religious figure.
Do you think that you're in any danger in mimicking?
Yep. Black magic is real. He mentioned witchcraft, all that. I mean, nowadays, because this clip is very old, very, very old. That's Christopher Lee talking. Now, black magic, all this witchcraft and sorceries and all that, they're all right in the open. You can turn on any music video and see that. You can turn on your Grammy Awards and see life in your face. That's how emboldened this Satanists have become. In your Luciferians, your witch doctors, what have yous, right? That's how proud they've become. It's all in your music videos, it's all in your movies. Like he himself, he played a wizard, warlock, which, whatever you want to call him. He's usually into characters like that. So it's all in your movies, it's all in your face. And he's telling you it's 100% real. So you can choose to deceive yourself all you want. You can choose to play around all you want. But all these things are very real. And they affect your life all the time. This is why the scriptures talks about putting on the whole armor. Right? Because you get attacked by powers in high places and heavenly places, witches. You know, you're constantly being bombarded by the left-hand side, the left-hand energy, right? You're constantly being bombarded with it. So it's always right to stay prayed up. It's always right to stay in the straight and narrow path so you don't get gobbled up with all this enchantments and witchcraft and sorceries, because these things are very, very real. We'll come back to the clip, but as always, this is Exodus, the 22nd chapter and the 18th verse. It says, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live, right? It says, "All praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakah, HaKodash. Double honors to apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught us this truth and continue to teach us this truth. Peace, salutation, shalom, shalom, shalom to all you brothers and sisters out there that have the household of faith. Shalom to you and to your brothers that are teaching this truth in honesty and sincerity. To you, I say shalom, right? Just a clip. I was watching a couple of clips. I ran into that. It was pretty interesting, man. You know, we'll play more of that and know what he was going into, how real all these things are. And then you look at what is happening around you now. It's like, damn, you don't watch any Grammy Awards, all these music awards, all this without you seeing something foul. It's all about that left-handed energy, your witchcraft, your sorceries and all that. This is why the scripture clearly tells you in Exodus, the 18th chapter, the 22nd chapter and the 18th verse, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." You shouldn't do that. You should put them to death, because if you don't, it's like cancer. It will fester. It will corrupt minds. It will corrupt spirits, right? Take, for example, Doja Cat. She used to be this sweet girl, making all this sweet kind of music. All of a sudden, she went so friggin' dark, man. Like, she went so effing dark. She one of her videos, she turned into a straight up demon, right? With tail and horns and, climbing walls and things, right? So that's what it is. So that's why you have to burn a witch in the stake, pretty much. Because if you don't, guess what? They will heap to themselves followers, and their followers will heap more followers. Next thing you know, the whole world is drowned in wickedness, man. You see? The world is totally done. You see? Before you know it, people are now sleeping with beasts. That's part of the ritual. Have you sleep with a pig or a dog or a horse. That's why the scripture also went on to say, whosoever lieth with a beast shall surely be put to death. So this is why the scriptures, the Bible, is very essential for the way we live. Because without the Bible, people would just be out here lawless. Just like Aleister Crowley, which is a known Satanist, known warlock, witch, whatever you want to call him, right? He told you, do as thou wilt. You see? Do as thou wilt, meaning do everything that goes contrary to righteousness. Like here, it's telling you shouldn't be out there. Zoophilia, they call it, I believe. Bestiality. Shouldn't be doing things like that. Necromancy, sleeping with the dead. So these are all practices that goes on in this present evil world. Right? Why is that? Because you didn't put all those witches down. Now they've put that idea in the minds of people. Do whatever you want to do. Your Beyoncés and your Jay-Z's and all that, throwing up the pyramid and whatever. There's nothing all but witchcrafts, right? So let's watch a little bit more.
In front of the camera.
No, that's an interesting question, because I must admit that it did enter our minds when we were performing some of these ceremonies. You see, I am playing, as I told you, a priest. The various ceremonies that are carried out by the priest, in this case myself, and the members of his group or coven, are blasphemous ceremonies, totally blasphemous and totally profane. They have to be. That is to say, they must be profane and blasphemous to be effective. This is part of the ritual and part of the belief of these people, that in order to make any kind of ceremony totally effective, it must be the exact diametrical opposite of the real ceremony. That is to say, if you make the sign of the cross, you do it like that, upside down. If you are going to carry out a satanic ceremony, whether it's a baptism or a particular group of people doing something like trying to raise an elemental or trying to create the perfect situation for an evil spirit or trying to produce evil vibrations and so on, they plug in, so to speak, the force of evil like plugging in on the switchboard of the telephone. In order for this to be effective, it must be carried out, as I've already said, by a consecrated person, i.e. a priest, and it must also be carried out on consecrated ground. Now, in this film, I, as a priest, am carrying out these ceremonies, like baptism, in the name of the Dark Lord, in a real church. Now, obviously, I'm an actor. At least I hope people think I am. And I am therefore an actor playing a part. So are the other people in front of the camera who are taking part in the ceremony with me. We are all acting. I asked the parents of the baby, the real baby that I baptized in this real church in a blasphemous way, if they objected, if it worried them, this 5-week-old baby. And the parents, who are very young, said, no, it doesn't worry us. We are Catholics. Our child will be baptized by Catholics.
Yep, it doesn't worry them because they are Catholics. Why? Because Catholic is just another form of witchcraft. It's just another form of Satanist, but it's being dressed up as something righteous, right? This is why a lot of the priests and what have yous, they always end up abusing altar boys, end up abusing, young ones, because it's all part of that. That is the same thing they do in witchcraft covens and things like that, right? to take the innocence away. So it's no different. That's why they are okay with their child being in this blasphemous scenario, you know, like they're acting it out, and everything is, like you said, is all blasphemous. They're doing everything upside down, like in the TV series, the Stranger Things, right? Upside down world. So that's the world we live in. Everything is upside down. That's why you go to a Freemason lodge. What they have in there, they have the Bible in there. It's not like they have the Bible to do what is in there. It's to do totally opposite of what is in the Bible, right? So that's what it is, just to do everything opposite of what is in the Bible. And now you have the parents co-signing using their child, their real baby now, in this blasphemous kind of ceremony, Satanist kind of thing. What does that remind you? That reminds you of all the schools opening up a Satanist lodge in schools now, right? In kindergarten schools and middle school and things like that. So they have Satanist lodge up in there with Baphomet statue and all that, right? So that's exactly what it is. And the people are okay with it because all these institutions, be it your church, your schools, and they are all forms of witchcraft. Hence why in school you do what? You spelling, like casting a spell, right? So that's all part of that. You can try to differentiate or make it look like it's no part of it, but they are all part of that. Who gave you all these things? These are all to, at some point, like at some kind of level, you are a witchcraft practitioner, whether you know it or not, right? You're a witchcraft practitioner. Because all the things you learn in school, in church, or whatever, they're all putting you in that witchcraft mindset. Music videos, the movies, and all of that, all of those things, right? That's why the parents are okay with it, because it's no different from the real world, because the upside down world we live in that case. And let's go on with this.
We will tell him about this, but it doesn't worry us. And the father gave the most sensible reason for this. He said, it's only a film. And if you can think of it in that way, fine. I have a rather vivid imagination, and some of the people who were working with me in this sequence were also discussing this, and we felt a little uneasy. You know, you are saying terrible things, and you are saying it on consecrated ground, but then the other side of you takes over, the logical side, and says, look, we're only actors doing this, you know, we're not doing it for real. We were sort of looking at the roof to see if there's any sign of it falling in on top of us, but nothing happened. I think we were far more worried about dropping the baby, to be quite honest. While we're on that subject, it might be...
You hear what he's saying? He's trying to rationalize the whole thing, right? Even though you're using actual spell casting words, you're in a very blasphemous situation, ceremonies, doing everything totally opposite of the Bible, of the scriptures, right? So, you know, he's trying to rationalize it. Oh, we're just acting. Yeah, that's the same thing a witch would say, right? You know, I'm just acting all this out, right? And then next thing you know, things are happening around you, which he said himself, black magic is real. So what kind of logic are you trying to come up with to make it look like you're just acting? You're not just acting, you're performing a ritual. That's what you're doing, man. You can try to excuse yourself all you want, but you're performing a ritual, and that's your whole career was based around that. He made a lot of movies about Satanists and occultic kind of thing, right? Because he has knowledge of it. And he goes on to say,
It'd be interesting to say, amusing to mention, that the baby certainly got its own back on me. When it came to the actual baptism of the child, I have already told you that the parents didn't object, because I was making the sign of the cross on the child's forehead in supposedly blood, upside down, and baptizing the child into the service of the Dark Lord. And the child, obviously, was getting a bit bored and a bit cold, and didn't like being taken away from his parents and held in my arms and then held in somebody else's arms. And it was making a lot of noise. And I started to speak very quietly, and there was completely total silence, which impressed everybody. And I myself thought, well, you know, it's listening. It was staring at me, rigid concentration. And I suddenly realized why there was this total silence and this rigid concentration. The child was retaliating in the way in which it knew best, all over me, and all over the lady who was holding the child. Well, all I can say is it speaks volumes for our self-control that none of us broke out, because, of course, it was extremely funny.
Why has there been a resurgence of interest in the subject?
I honestly don't know. I've been asked this question all over the world. I've talked to people who are serious professional students of the occult. I've talked to a man who wrote a whole book about the occult in America called The Occult Explosion. I think it's a form of escapism. It's the fact that in this day and age we do live in a somewhat disagreeable world in many respects that I don't have to even talk about. Everybody knows this is a fact. And people are constantly seeking for a way out, whether it's to gratify their own desires or whether it's to find a way out of their own loneliness, or whether it is looking for power or physical indulgence or whatever you like to call it. I think it's always this question of people looking for a road out, an exit, an escape, some form of safety valve which will help them to blow off steam. They don't realize how dangerous it is to get involved in this respect, because inevitably they start at a lower level and then they get absolutely under the control of the bosses, because the bosses exist. They have the same ranks in the Church of Evil as they have in the good church. They do. They have ranks in the hierarchy of the priesthood, just as you have bishops and deacons and archbishops and cardinals and so on. You have various ranks and grades.
Exactly. They have ranks in these things. That's why. Let's pull the scripture out real quick. Let's pull the scripture out. Yep. So this is Ephesians, the 6th chapter. And the 12th verse says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." So there are hierarchy with this whole thing. So this is what we're really up against. So this is why the 13th verse is telling you, "Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of the Most High, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand, stand therefore, having your loins girded about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparations of the gospel of peace, above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked." You hear that? That's what it is, man. These things are real. You know, you might try to join something out of boredom, like he was saying. People are just trying to have fun, do this and that, and they might not know how real this whole thing is. Next thing you know, you are in deep shit, in deep doo-doo. You're being taken over by demons, man. You see? And the higher you go, the more demon-infested you are. That's why they start to have all these alter egos. They have to have this split personality. Beyonce would tell you there's, somebody living in her that's called Sasha Fierce. Nicki Minaj has her own, like all these characters. They all have these demons dwelling in them. And this most recent one with Doja Cat. She practically was playing out the role of her demon in one of the songs. I can't even remember what song it was. But if you've seen that song, you know what I'm talking about. She's all very demon-like, with horns and tail and everything. You see? So that's what it is. So this is what you're up against. You might think it for a joke. Just think it's just for partying and having orgies. Next thing you know, you're performing some crazy-ass rituals, man. Taking lives and things. You see? That's where a lot of all these celebrities, they get to a point where they lose someone dear to them. Right? They always have that. Mike Tyson, Michael Jordans, and all of them, Kanye West. Kanye West practically told you that he sacrificed his mom. He came right up and said it. Right? Yeah. So this is real.
Like Magister Templey, the master of the temple, Ipsissimus, the sort of number one top man. And this is not just occult writing for the sake of writing. This is a fact, and people really believe in this. As a matter of fact, there is a church in Los Angeles called the Church of Satan, which is run by a man called Anton Sandor LaVey, who has written 2 books. I'm not sure that he intended to be taken too seriously, otherwise, obviously, if it was true and complete Satanism, it wouldn't be permitted. But he sent me a copy of 2 of his books because he'd seen a picture I'd done with Sammy Davis Jr. in which I'd played the devil, a very sort of modern, up-to-date devil, Lucifer. The thing was called Poor Devil. The film was called Poor Devil. Very amusing. It was a comedy. And he sent me a copy of one of these books, which was headed Regi Satanas, which means Satan is king, more or less. And he wrote underneath to Christopher Lee, a fine actor and a perfect devil. And from Sandor LaVey, well, I took that as a compliment. I don't think that's intended to be taken too seriously. That is all out in the open. But the real thing is something which I wouldn't be prepared to discuss. I have never attended a ceremony of this kind. I would not even begin to discuss what actually takes place during a Black Mass because it is so appallingly blasphemous and so repulsive and so unbelievably foul. Not just a question of hundreds of years of ritual, but what actually happens, what people actually do, and what is done to the host, and what is done to the cup, and so on. Something I wouldn't be prepared to discuss in public. Enough people have written about it. Joris Karl Heisman's wrote about it. Dennis Wheatley has too.
Even the interviewer, he's like, God damn, you hear what he's talking about? That the things that go on in there is so repulsive, so appalling, so foul. He can't even begin to talk about these things. That's how degenerate these things are. All these Hollywood parties, you open the door and some weird shit going on, right? Take, for example, the movie Eyes Wide Shut with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. And what is his name? The director, Stanley Kubrick. He talked about how there was a 30-minute gap in the movie that got taken out. You can only imagine what it was in those 30 minutes that got taken out, right? So that's how depraved all these rituals are. It is too foul to even begin to imagine what goes on in these places, man. You see? That's how crazy these things are. They're very real. So this is Wisdom of Solomon, the 12th chapter, and the 4th verse. It says, whom thou hatest, here's the whom, that is the Most High God of the Bible. So whom thou hatest for doing most odious works of witchcrafts and wicked sacrifices. That's exactly what this guy is going into. The practices in these things is just abominable to even try to say it out loud. You know, that's how foul it is. Odious works of witchcraft and wicked sacrifices. So there's always got to be a sacrifice in these things. Right? Always. That's part of the rite of passage, if you will. It says, and also those merciless murderers of children. Right? The innocent always pay the price in all these rituals. And devourers of men's flesh and the feast of blood. So this is all they do in there. It says, with their priests out of the midst of their idolaters crew, and the parents that kill their own hand, souls destitute of help. Even parents sacrificing their own born, man. Just like what he was going into. The moms didn't care that they were trying to use their baby for some backward ass ceremony, some ritualistic ceremony. You know? We don't care. As long as they get paid. It says that the land which thou esteemest above all other might receive a worthy colony of the Most High's children. Nevertheless, those thou sparest as men, and they descend wives forerunners of thine host to destroy them by little by little, little by little and little. But the point being, the odious works of witchcraft and also merciless murderers of children and devourers of men's flesh. That's cannibalism right there. And the feast on blood, that's your adrenal. That's your adrenal right there. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can add Google Chrome to it. Then you can get what I'm talking about. YouTube, you're tripping, man. That's what he's saying here.
How did you come to play the part of Scaramanga in the James Bond film The Man with the Golden Gun?
Can I, just before we get to that, just make a point that, by the way, that what I've been discussing and what I've been telling you about all these terrible things, it does not come from inside knowledge by any manner of means. I don't, as I said, have a private line of any kind which feeds me this sort of information. I know no more about it than anybody else who can read about it in the book.
So he's trying to backpedal. He's trying to retract because he said a lot that can actually cost him his life. You see what I'm saying? Because that's what happens, man. The Spirit, the Most High, gets on you, as it said. There is no secret hidden that shall not be made known. So he said a whole lot. So he had to backpedal. So look at this. I can play this. I'll put it up on my Odyssey and Rumble. I can't play because I'll upload this on YouTube also. So, YouTube just stay tripping. But this is exactly what we're talking about, playing out in real life. It said child trafficking and sacrifice. It says European women who attended secret meetings. What kind of meetings is this? There's nothing but the ritualistic ones, man. And she says she was naming names, man. She was calling names. The Netherlands royalties. She was naming everybody, man. She was very real. She had first-hand knowledge. She even knew where all the bodies are buried and things. She said she contacted the police to actually take them there. She has evidence and footage and all of that. But nobody paid it. They didn't want to go because it's all about, you cannot. There are people that are above the law, right? Like royalty is the queen of Belgium and things. She called her name out, right? So that's what it is here. It says children are trafficked by high-level globalists who are then tortured, abused, and murdered in ritual sacrifice. I'm only trying to bring awareness. I don't do this for likes. The channel is talking about that. So that's what it is, man. There's a two-part in it. The first part and the second part. She was going in. That's exactly what Christopher Lee is talking about. Exactly what it is in real time. But then a lot of people want to take it for a joke and, it's all just bullshit. Because that's what I believe in that Epstein Island. It's not just, for pleasure, for sexual pleasure. It's also this ritualistic aspect to it. I totally believe that. Yeah. And with that, all praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakahakodash. Double honors to apostles and elders of Great Millstone. See you next time, Lord willing. Shalom. Shalom.